Hi folks, I say folks, probably nobody watching this, so I'm going to be talking to myself, aren't I? Right, so a couple of people have asked about how I do my sourdough. So today I'm going to start a new sourdough starter or levain. I'm going to show you how to do it. So here we go. Okay, so a little bit about equipment first. You will need straight jar. These are about 12 quid on Amazon. Other online vendors are available. So, but you've got to go straight because if you get a jam jar type thing, I'll show you what I mean by that. That's your jam jar style. You can do it in those, but because of the ridge, the lip on the inside there, you can see, moisture collects and it builds up mould. Mould kills yeast and all the nice bacteria that you're trying to build in your sourdough starter. So we don't use that. You can temporarily, but not for extended durations of time. Here's one I made earlier. Let's see if you can see that. I've just transferred it out of this jar and then back in because it needed cleaning. And normally you get a bit of crud built up around here and it doesn't look very nice, but it's fine as long as there's no mould. So you can have that all cruddy for as long as you like because it just adds to the bacteria, the good bacteria that is. But I've cleaned it just for this so you can see a nice clean, hang on, oh, there we are, sourdough starter. It has been in the fridge for a few days, so it's a little bit sleepy, so we'll have to wake that up a bit later on. I'll talk about that later because I'm going to be making some sourdough pizza bases for tomorrow. So, but we're talking about sourdough starter. How do we start it off? Raisins. They are the best activation agent you can get. You can use citric acid, lemon, orange, lime. You can use zest from any of those as well, but I find they taint the flavour of the starter. So raisins are your best bet. They don't flavour it to any great degree. They do a very good job and you get going quite quickly. And if they end up in your bread, it's not a problem. You've got raisins in your bread. So put those in there. Oh, we need scales. That's what we need. Scales is what we need. So we've got our scales. The other thing we need is flour, obviously. I use very strong bread flour. I've tried it with others and I get the best results with this. It happens to be M&S's Canadian special brand, which I really like. I wish there was a UK version of this that I could get hold of, but I can't find it anywhere. But it's Canadian special. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's good. Again, other retailers are available. And then also what we need is water. Now, this is often where things go wrong. So you can see the water there. Can you see the bubbles in that water? The bubbles in there are chlorine evaporating. So I've had the water sat on the windowsill for about an hour, maybe a little longer, and that allows the UV through the window to start evaporating the chlorine. Time just exposing to the air evaporates chlorine as well. And what the problem with chlorine is it kills bacteria and pretty much does a bad job of letting your yeast grow. So it'll kill yeast as well. So things that will kill yeast are chlorine in water. The fluoride doesn't help either. Dish soap. So when I cleaned this, when I cleaned that, sorry, I'm not used to doing this. I just used hot water. Just rinsed it out, scraped it with a knife. Didn't use any soap on that, just so that the starter will grow. So that's Stanley. We call him Stanley starter. Starters are often called Levain, so the one we're creating today is going to be called Larry Levain. Right. So you've got to name your starter, especially if it's working well. So let's get the scales going. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in 50 grams of water. You can filter your water as well, by the way. So if you've got a water filter, that does the same job. You can also use a UV lamp. That does a brilliant job as well. But don't put water into your starter straight from the tap, because it's full of all the things that are making the water clean, which is good for you, not good for your starter. What we're going to do now is we're going to put in 50 grams of flour. You get used to this because this is what you do every day. This is going to take 7 days before it's ready. So you have to have a very mature starter before you can start to bake with it. And we're going to revisit this every day. Don't worry, I won't put it in different videos. I'll put them all together. But 7 days is the minimum you need to get a fully mature starter before you're ready to bake with it. And if I do it right, I will show you a bake as well. How long that'll take between now and then, I don't know, but we'll see. So 50 grams of water, 50 grams of flour, very strong bread flour, that's what we use. Just white, very strong bread flour. You can do wholemeal, but white is more versatile. So if you do a white loaf and you do a wholemeal starter, obviously it's going to taint the white loaf. So I do everything white. And if I do a wholemeal, I always mix white and wholemeal anyway. So having a white starter doesn't impact things too much. So get the scales out of the way. And we're going to mix that. It's got to be mixed really well. If you've got any clumps of flour that haven't been blended, it's not the end of the world, but it makes your loaf less pretty and can taint the flavour a little bit. It just doesn't blend very well when you make your bread. So we're just merging this all together, mashing it up, making sure it's blended nicely. Don't worry about what happens with the raisins, they're there just to accelerate the process anyway. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but these things come with a rubbery, plasticky spatula. Use plastic or rubber or wood, don't use metal, because it impacts the flavour and the development of the bacteria in your sourdough starter. So if you're using a metal spoon, don't, that's going to impact it. If you're using a jar with lip on it, don't, because that's going to introduce moisture and mould at some point. I use those to temporarily decant the starter while I clean the jar, and then I put it back in straight away when it's done. So that's our mix. I don't know if you can see, it's mixed in quite nicely. Lighting here is not great, but yeah, that's how that works. I can't see any unblended flour. Sometimes it helps to chop at the mix and get it going like that, just to make sure you haven't left any unmixed. And we'll talk about that a bit more when I do a loaf. So that is how you start it off. This method is in James Morton's Brilliant Bread. If you want a book, I can highly recommend it. I'm not paid to promote it or anything like that, I'm not sponsored. I just think it's a particularly good book. It's straight to the point, doesn't mess about, gives you some really good easy recipes to do. So what we're going to do now is feed Stanley, ready for my my pizza bases tomorrow. So what I tend to do is, so let's get that started. So again, you need a cloth cap. It's breathable. You generally get a lid with it as well that's solid. What I tend to do is, if I'm not baking for a few days, I put the lid on and I put it in the fridge. Slows everything down. But if I'm baking the next day, you use the cloth cap to allow it to breathe. So we'll put that on there. That's a bit better cloth cap than the one for Stanley. So we'll come back to him tomorrow. That's Larry. And we'll have a look at Stanley. And we're just going to do the same again. So Stanley is going to be used for baking tomorrow. Let me just rinse that because that's what I need to use. So 2 different spatulas. I prefer the red one, if I'm being honest, because it's a bigger head and it makes things easier for doing what I'm about to do. So again, we're going to add 50 grams of water. And this is what you do every day. I mean, you don't vary it. You might want to add a bit more. There is a school of thought that says you have to feed it more than that's already in there, and you can do that, but you can end up getting your starter overflowing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get the flour in. So again, we're going to use 50 grams of flour. I'm making a mess already, I'll be told off. And a lot of people say, well, why do you make this stuff yourself? Why don't you buy something in the shops? Well, so for starters, it's fun. I like it. You can use it for mindfulness. You can focus on what you're doing. Some of the bread that you get in the supermarket specifically has all sorts of additives and preservatives in them, and there's do that in sight of you. Additives, preservatives, commercially produced yeast, which is not good for some people, including myself, and sugar. So when you make your own bread, if you're doing sourdough specifically, it's good bacteria and it's good for your microbiome in your stomach. There's only 3 ingredients, and that's water, flour and salt. And as I say, making it's good fun. And just the fact you can make something so brilliant out of 3 ingredients is amazing. Just love the concept. But so yeah, there's health benefits, mental health as well as physical health, and it's fun. So low glycemic index, which means there's no sugar in it, or lower sugar in it. It does ferment, so it does generate some sugar. You could also, I might get to show you this as Larry develops, but what happens is a byproduct from the development process is a liquid called hooch, and it's a very, very basic but natural forming alcohol. So you can, if you really wanted to, you could brew your own alcohol from it as well. Never done it myself, but if that's what turns you on, go for it. So here we go. So Stanley's been fed, and he's ready for tomorrow to do the pizza bases. Probably won't film that, but if anybody wants the recipe, I'm happy to share it, if anybody's listening to me. Anyway, so that is that. So he's going to get his breathable cap on. Let's just make sure. Depending on how he does, I might need to feed him a bit later, because if I don't refrigerate, it's about a 12-hour cycle for feeding. 24 at a push, but you start to produce the hooch I just talked about at about 24 hours, certainly in these conditions. So on this jar we've got a thermometer that doesn't generally work. I think the new one does. It looks like it's working. But you've also got this measure. This measure here. So you can use this line to mark what day. So it happens to be Saturday, and we're just into the afternoon. You can mark when it was fed. And what that does, it does two things. It tells you when it last fed, so you know when to feed it again. But also it shows you how much the starter rises. This one will probably be up here somewhere tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to put the cloth cap back on and put him in the cupboard next to Larry. So we have, let's move everything out of the way. We have Larry as the new starter and Stanley as the old. We shouldn't see anything happening for a day or two here. If it starts bubbling, great, we're on to a winner straight away. This one will be bubbling within the hour. This one probably won't see anything until about midweek. There we go, that's it, simple as that. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so I thought we'd do a quick check-in on Larry and Stanley. As expected, Larry has not budged an inch, nor would I expect him to. However, Stanley is thriving. Look at that. Yeah, just thought I'd show you. Right, back to the plan. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so this is day 2 of Larry. He is not showing any signs of life as such. Let's have a look. There are some bubbles in there, so you probably can't see them, but he is showing signs of life. So we're going to feed him. Please don't mind that, that's the homemade granola that we're cooling off, and tumble dry in the background, so please excuse that. So, turns out a video stopped recording while I was talking to myself, which is great. So I've now fed Larry. He's going to go back in the cupboard for another day. I don't know where I got to, but probably end up discarding some of him tomorrow. Let's hope he's got some bubbles. Stanley has been fed and put away in the fridge. I've got some pizza dough on the go in there. So he's in the fridge. I find that because I don't bake every day, it's better to refrigerate the sourdough starter. It slows everything down. It means you don't have to feed it every day, so it costs less. So when this guy is up and running properly, he's going to go in the fridge as well. Hopefully I can use 2. Bake more. Yay. Anyway, we shall revisit tomorrow. So we're on day 3. I do believe Larry is alive. Much to my surprise, we have lovely bubbles. So what we're going to do is maximise that by pouring a bit away and then feed him again, and we'll keep going for the 7 days. So we'll see you tomorrow. So this is day 4. This is Larry. He seems to be doing rather well. You can see he's He's grown a bit, still bubbling away very, very nicely, sorry. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to leave him. I'm just going to let him settle and enjoy himself and relax, and we'll feed him tomorrow. But it's all looking very good. He's a little bit ahead of schedule, I think. And it looks like I'll be using him to bake next week. So I'll probably do a video of making a loaf with him next week if I get time. So yeah, day 4 done. And we're just letting him rest. Tomorrow I might discard some. I'm expecting a bit of hooch on the top. And then we'll feed him again. Okay, see you tomorrow. Okay, so what are we on? Day 4, I think. No, day 5, do apologise. So Larry has been 48 hours without food, which means his bubbles have calmed down a bit. There is no evidence of hooch, which I thought there would be at this stage. What I'm going to do is tip a bit away again and feed him again. Maybe see if I can do this one-handed 1 second. So you might see the consistency that we're dealing with here. There we go. It's very gloopy, and we're probably losing some raisins here, but that's okay because we've had what we need from them, and we shall just run that away. So hot water will just run that away down the sink, so it's just water effectively. You might end up with some bits that you've got to pull out and put in the bin, which we'll do in a minute. So yeah, there's that's your sort of consistency. You will be able to break it down if you wanted to, but you can just chuck it in the bin. I'll sort that out in a minute. So, as you see, because of pouring stuff away, you get all that gunk around the edge. And as I said in the original footage, it doesn't matter as long as you don't get any mould building up on it. So, we're going to zero that out. Get our water. This is where I can't do one-handed. Try again. So we're going to try and get 50 grams. Yeah, 52 is fine. It doesn't have to be exact. In fact, you can almost ditch the scales. I'm a bit procedure driven, so I like to have the scales. You can just estimate it going forward. But I like to measure because I'm like that. Because I put 52 in, let's take it to 104 in total. There we go. Let's move it over here. Give it a bit of a mix. Again, can't do this one-handed. But you kind of want to scrape as much of that stuff off the side and get it in and mix it all up. Again, make sure your flour is blended properly, otherwise it'll still work, but it just gives you a nasty loaf at the end. I'll show you an example of unblended sourdough starter if I had one, but I've managed to sort that out myself now, so I don't get it as often. Anyway, so that's a bit more of the feeding process. He's going to go in again overnight. We're still doing well, still early, and like I say, I'll probably be looking to bake with this sometime next week. Meanwhile, Stanley is being used. He'll be used again tomorrow, but I'll try and do a video of making the loaf that I normally make for sandwiches using Larry, just to prove that it works. So, see you tomorrow. Right, let's see if we can get it right this time. We're on day 6. Yes. Right, so Larry, let's have a look at him. He's gone a little flat. And he's very liquidy. I don't know if you can see that. He's moving around a lot. I'm kind of glad it's done this, because this is what happens occasionally. You think it's died, but you can see there are still bubbles. I think you can see anyway. Still bubbles in there. Still alive. He's just gone a bit flat. Now what can have happened is I can have overfed him, possibly. But what I think really happened is I didn't let the water sit for long enough, and it had some chlorine in. So what we're going to do is tip some of that away, and then we're going to feed him again and see what happens. But I've had some water sat all morning, since about 9 o'clock this morning, and it is now 1:30. So the chlorine should have evaporated. So here we go. I'll go and pour him away. I won't show you that because it's messy, and we'll get going. Now the added bonus is we're slowly getting rid of what's left of the raisins. If you don't need them anymore, we've done the job that we need to do. And ultimately it's better if it doesn't go in the loaf. Doesn't really matter if it does, but if you don't like raisins, it's not a good thing to do. So yeah, we've emptied him out a little bit. We shall weigh out some water. As you can see, or hopefully see, the water is nice and clean and lots of bubbles on the bottom. So we'll get 50 grams in. And then I've got 52, hey ho, whatever. Try and match that if we can. It's like trying to stop a petrol pump when you just hit the nearest pound. Sometimes, maybe not that quite that hard. But here we go. Let's see. Just gone over a little bit. Never mind, it's fine. So we're just going to mix that up. Really should prop my camera up like this every time. It's both hands free. Well, the good news is there is definitely some resistance down there, so it's got a bit of consistency, which is good. So he's not completely beyond repair, and we haven't seen any hooch yet, so it's not like he's starving. He just went a little bit flat, as I say. And what happens is it just becomes a bit more liquidy and less gel-like. And you should never bake with it when it's like that. Tip really, and I'll talk about it some more when I do a loaf, is that the sourdough starter should float on water. If it does, it's ready to use. But you've really got to hit it at that sweet spot where it's not gone hungry, but it's ready for the next feed. Because when you do that, put it in with the rest of the mix, it starts feeding on the flour and the water, and you get a better rise. That's the theory anyway. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. So just get rid of that. So that's Larry. Oh, what day are we on? So what will happen is I'll probably end up feeding him tomorrow and then putting him in the fridge over the weekend and baking with him next week, probably. Speaking of bakes, this is one of my doughs on the go at the moment. It's been sat there, what are we on? About 3 hours. It's got another 3 hours to go, and then it will be put into a tin. You can bake it outside the tin if you want, but mine will be in a tin because I like a sandwich loaf. And the thing you've got to remember is, I'll talk about this again when I do the bake, sourdough takes time. If it doesn't take time, you're doing it wrong. And a lot of people get impatient and just say, oh, it's not rising. First proof, good 6 hours. Second proof in the tin or in a proving basket, about 4 hours. So by the time you're ready to bake, best part of a day, you do have options to leave it overnight if you want. Anyway, that's an extra tip. We'll talk about that more on the bake. See you tomorrow. So, day 7, last day that we need to do something serious in terms of making the sourdough starter robust. As you probably were, yesterday we had a bit of an issue, it'd gone flat. Today he's alive again, which is good. So what we're going to do today is the last thing for this video at least. I'm going to pour some away again, and I'm going to feed him, but this time I'm going to put his hard cap on and put him in the fridge. Next time you see him, it'll be used to make a loaf. So start by pouring away. So I've poured away a little under half. So we've got, probably a little under a half left, just over a half left, and we're going to feed him as usual. Sorry about the tumble dryer, still going again. Yeah, 50-50 again, so don't worry about it too much. And there we go. So yeah, he's just going to get mixed up and put back in the fridge. There's probably a bit much in there. I could have poured a bit more away, maybe, but let's see how we go with it. Oops, splash it. He's definitely alive, so it's always good. A little viscous for my liking, but I'm hoping the fridge will sort that out a bit. We'll see how we get on. So I get all mixed up and ready to go. And again, you'll notice I don't really care about the crud around the top. Just let it go. You might need to clean it off if you're using the screw cap, because sometimes it stops you from closing it. But yeah, that's it. He's in the fridge. You'll see him again next time for the bake. See you whenever.